Welcome to the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, and it's here that we're going to be looking at some more ancient sites, including right here in Jerash. Jerash is one of the 10 cities of the Decapolis, and we went to Bet Shan the other day, which was one of the other ones. The others are in Syria. This arch was built by Hadrian, the emperor that made the Hadrian's Wall that we saw in England. Unfortunately, this place was also flattened in the great earthquake in 747, but it's still very well preserved as an example of Roman and then Greek and then Byzantine culture.
And this is a hippodrome where they have horse chariot races and they go racing down there just as in Ben-Hur.
And that's where the audience cheers their horse on from. You can hear in the background the call to prayer. And this is the main meeting point in Jerash, the Roman Forum, or the Greek Agora. And here you can see that these are the original Greek stones, and the Romans have added to it and made it even bigger in the Forum. And up there is the Cardo, the main road. And then up there is the temple for Jupiter and then Zeus, and the amphitheatre. This is a big place here, a big place, the whole city, amazing, bigger than any of the other sites that we have seen before. It's such a great pity that so much of it was flattened by that earthquake. These are the original seats, and you can even see on some of the seats the original seat numbers. There goes Gary, showing that he can get right up to the top of the auditorium there.
Well, 5,000 people could hear me from down in the centre.
They even have bagpipe playing Arabs here. Pretty magnificent, eh? And this is a Byzantine church. You can see it's got incredibly well preserved mosaics for its floor.
And this is the most important place here. It's the Temple of Artemis, which was what the Greeks called it, and when the Romans conquered them and took over it, they called it the Temple of Diana.
Youthfulness.
Yeah.
These columns are in really good condition because they've been covered by the earthquake and only recently excavated. There's evidence everywhere of that earthquake. And these pillars resisted the earthquake, which is just great. And this is Artemis Gate, and the people would come up from their houses down there, up these steps to the temple. And notice that there are 6 small steps, then a big one, 6 days of the week, and then on the 7th you rest.
Can you imagine how terrifying it must have been on the day of the earthquake, having these big columns coming down on top of you? It would just be awful. But this is the original ground, and it has the tracks of the chariots in the stone.
Amazing, eh?
And I've just located some sort of a centipede, although I haven't counted its legs. It could be a millipede, it could be a 500-pede for all I know, but all I know there's a lot of legs.
And this is the shopping centre, and shops over there. I've really enjoyed our visit here to Jerash. It's actually very hot, but it's fantastic to be part of these old ruins which go right back to the Greek and Roman times, and they're all in such a good state of repair. Fantastic. And now we're in the sprawling big city of Amman, which is the capital of Jordan, and over there is the biggest flag in the world. There it is. And Amman, in biblical times, was where the Ammonites came from, and you might remember the story of Bathsheba, and David wanted to marry Bathsheba, so he sent Uriah the Hittite here to fight a battle against the Ammonites, and he got killed so that David could get his wife. Later on, Amman, this amazingly big city, was called Philadelphia, and once again it's been ancient, then Greek, then Roman, and then later civilizations, each one built on top of the other. It's an amazing place. And they've all got their satellite dishes. And any old bread, they just stick it on the side of the road. More than 3 million people live here. There's an old Roman amphitheatre. What a wonderful city. And children. King Abdullah. And he is 65 years old. 46. 46. Who is this?
King Abdullah.
King Abdullah. He's your king. Yes.
King Abdullah.
Hello. We're now in Petra in Jordan, and we're going to embark on one of life's big experiences. We're going to walk in to see the ancient ruins of Petra. Takes about 3.5 hours, and boy, it's hot. We're going to go and see this amazing place. It's one of the 7 wonders of the world. Along the way, I'll tell you some of the history of it and try and explain its importance to the Middle East way back a couple of thousand years ago. First 4 kilometers are actually downhill, so it's not too bad.
The temperature's not too bad at the beginning.
And quote, at the beginning.
We'll see what happens.
In Bible times, Petra was called Sela, and it was the capital of the Edomites, and this whole area here is Edom. And the road is the King's Highway, the main highway through which all trade travelled between the Gulf of Arabia and the north. When Moses was leading the children of Israel through here, he asked the Edomites if they would let him come through, and they said no. Now, as a result of that, if you look in the book of Obadiah, you'll see what God said would happen as a result, that this whole area would fall into ruins. And I hope that when you have finished watching this, that you'll read the book of Obadiah. It's an amazing prophecy that has been accurately fulfilled right here in Sela, or Petra. And here is why Petra was such a successful city. There's just one way in and out, and it's through this narrow canyon. And the other reason why this city could exist was because of water. Up there is a spring, so they built a channel to bring the water into Petra. Pretty amazing water system. Their system brought the water in, but they also had to keep water out, and so they built dams. Otherwise their nice canyon to get in and out would get flooded. In some places the walls are 200 meters high, and they shoot movies in here.
Isn't it just absolutely incredible? Look at the rock formations and how close they are, and this is really quite something. Absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
That's the way to do it. And this is their chief god. And just look at the colours up there in the rocks. Fantastic.
And as they say, it's a gorgeous gorge.
Just gorgeous. This gorge. They only found this 12 years ago, but there's the guide for a camel caravan and the feet of camels. All trade was done outside the city. Only their own people were allowed in here, into Petra.
On one side the water channel's open, and on this side they've actually built clay pipes, a bit like what we had along them. It's quite ingenious.
Covered up so that an enemy mightn't even see it.
Yeah, very forward.
And just look at this. Me oh my. This monument is all in one piece. Can you imagine the amount of work that's gone into carving it out of the rock face there? And you can see the scaffolding that they might have used to get up there. It's all pretty well preserved too, because there's no rain here, and the sun only gets on it once for about an hour a day. So as a result, we've got an incredibly well preserved monument dating way back to the before the time of Christ. The rock is sandstone, so it's probably reasonably easy to work with, but the scale is just amazing. Inside it's used as a mausoleum for the king. See again the beautiful colours in the rocks. And right here is where they did the sacrifices, mostly animals, but occasionally virgins.
This has to be one of the most amazing sights on earth. It is absolutely incredible, amazing to be here, and just the incredible, I don't know, minds that went into carving it, let alone putting it here through all that rock. It's just amazing.
They didn't do just one of these monstrous carvings, but look, this whole rock wall has been carved out. Here's the tomb for whoever this one was carved for. And then up there, see the steps? That means heading for heaven. Part of their water channel is up in the rocks. And there's some steps leading up to it so that you can go up and get some water or look after the water channel. The people who lived here were called Nabateans, and these are their houses. Over there is the Roman theatre. Look at the colours in there. Just fantastic. The ancient Greeks, like Alexander the Great, couldn't conquer this place. The Romans tried many times. They couldn't conquer it. But finally in 106 AD, the Romans did conquer Petra. And they did it, of course, by cutting off the water supply. When they came in here, you can see some of the Roman influence in the theatre over there. They actually expanded the theatre, cutting even more seats out of the rock. You can imagine the Romans doing their thing in the natural amphitheatre up there. See the similarity in this monument to the really well preserved one we saw before? This one was used for practice so that they got the other one right. And you may be wondering what happened to this civilization after the Romans, after the Byzantines. Well, the main road, the King's Road, they found a better road. And so all the trade going up the King's Road stopped, so traders didn't come here anymore. And that meant that gradually it died off, till only Bedouins were left here. And so now the Bedouins are still here, but they're not allowed to live here. But they work here doing tourist things. There goes some here behind us. And effectively, since 1982, Petra has been closed off. And nobody is allowed in here at night. It certainly is a wonderful, wonderful place. And if you remember, I told you about Obadiah and how, because the Edomites rejected Moses as he came through this area, God said that this place would be a desolation. And that's exactly what it is. They trusted in the crags and the rocks. They trusted in this place. But now all it is a desolation. But it's a great tourist experience. And it's been an incredible privilege for us to come here. This is just one of the most wonderful places that I've ever been to. Petra. Petra in Jordan. The city of the rock, really fantastic. There's a very different approach to shepherding here in the desert. The Bedouins have flocks of sheep and goats like this. There's another one just over there. And the shepherd leads the sheep. They know each one of their sheep by name. And they just move around to find suitable pasture. Day in, night, every day, they just move following the pasture. And the shepherd leads the sheep. There's no fences, just the shepherd, the sheep and the pasture. And you can see there's certainly not too much to eat in the desert like this, so that's why they have to be nomadic. And there goes another shepherd, followed by the sheep. Your sheep. You look after them? Where do they sleep? Where do you sleep? Where do the sheep sleep?
Yeah.
Way up there.
What a tell.
Oh, in the hotel.
Tell, alright.
Oh, very good.
Oh.
How many sheep? How many?
What?
How many sheep? 5 sheep? 10?
100 sheep.
100 sheep.
100 sheep.
And you get wool off their back. Wool? No.
No.
You get milk.
Milk, yes, female.
Milk.
And milk.
Milk. Very good. Where I come from, we have millions of sheep, lots of sheep, but they're in fences. They have fences round them. And green grass everywhere. Not like this. Very green.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Off to look after his sheep. I hope you got the message. Our communication wasn't too hot, but what an opportunity to talk to a shepherd of the sheep. There he goes, rounding up his sheep. Now this is an ancient map of the Holy Land, and it was destroyed it's on the base of a church in Jordan, but it was destroyed in 747 in the big earthquake, but there are bits left. Let's look at some of them. There's Bethlehem. There is Jerusalem. You can see the different gates of Jerusalem. Over there is Jericho. There's the Jordan River and the Dead Sea. See the boats on the Dead Sea there? Then over on the other side to currently what is Jordan, Ammonites, the Moabites, and down there are Edomites, which is where we were yesterday. Amazing to have preserved here this map of from the ancient times, and way over here is in Arabia, and down here to Egypt as well. Fantastic. And we're now in a church on Mount Nebo, and this is the best preserved mosaic anywhere in the world. And it represents peace here and war up there. There's the old baptistry, and this one had mosaics even on the walls. Again, very special, dating back to about 500 AD. And this is what the writing on the mosaic says: Lord Jesus Christ, remember the clerics and the monks and all the others of this place. Lord, remember Sol, Chaim and Elias the mosaicists and all their household. And now we're on the top of Mount Nebo, and it's here that the children of Israel were brought by Moses and caught their first view of the Promised Land. Lying before us here, Moses led the people up here, and it was at this very place that they could move forward across the Jordan River and into the Promised Land. And down there is the Dead Sea, and on a clear day you can just see Jerusalem. And then before us is the Jordan Valley, and you can just see the Jordan River through there. And not far over there is the town of Jericho, and that's where Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho after they had gone across here into the Promised Land.
And it's here that God brought Moses to look out on the Promised Land. And somewhere on this mountain, we're not quite sure where, Moses died and was buried. Remember from the Old Testament that Moses wasn't allowed to go into the Promised Land because instead of speaking to the rock to bring water, he struck it with his stick in anger, and for that God said, no, you may only go and see the Promised Land, but you may not enter into it.
And he died here, and we don't know where he was buried, but we know he was 120 years old, and his eyes were good, he was strong, And he's buried somewhere out here.
Yes, the scripture says that his eye was not dimmed, nor was his vigour abated. So despite his 120 years old, Moses was still a very fit and energetic man.
Yep, here on Mount Nebo. And there's the promised land. And we're now at the Dead Sea, and we're going to go for a swim and have some mud.
So this is before. We shall see what happens from here.
You're looking nice and clean and fresh there.
Yeah.
The Dead Sea Spa Hotel.
Clean for the moment. I don't know what we're going to be once we come out of the water covered in mud.
Hopefully covered in mud.
Yeah.
Back in the Second World War, my mother came here, and we've got photos of her swimming in the Dead Sea, and apparently there's so much salt in the water that you can't help but float. So let's have a go and see what it's like. That's normal, so. It's as if you've got a flotation device. Very nice and cool too, in the heat of the sun. Got a little bit on my mouth, and man, it's salty. Really have to make sure you don't get it on your face. There's lots of development going on here on the edge of the Dead Sea. And look at this.
Oh, this is the beauty therapy taking place here.
You don't need beauty therapy.
Beauty takes time. It's a bit like an exfoliant because it's got lots of stones in it, and the stones scratch your skin, so it doesn't actually feel as wonderful as you might have imagined somehow.
Looks good though. This place isn't just about lolling in the Dead Sea. There's a beautiful swimming pool too, a lot cleaner. But the feeling of the salt on your skin it's lovely. It feels like shower gel, but it is sticky. So we're going to hop in the pool and get some nice clean fresh water on us. This is clean, fresh water.
Off he goes. Ooh, not exactly racing speed, but he got there.
Such speed.
Yeah.
Such speed.
Rip-roaring speed coming down there.
Beautiful and clean and warm and so here in this pool, it's lovely. This is a sort of a lovely, relaxing end to our time in Jordan. Well, you've got three guesses as to where we are now. We're in Egypt, and we're in Giza, which is on the other side of the Nile from Cairo. And here we have the three pyramids of Giza. The first one there is called Cheops. The second one is Khafren, and the third one here is called Mycerinus. The other ones there are for their wives and children.
So, I'm Abir, first of all. I'm your guide here. And we have two theories how the pyramids were built. We think they were either built by using sand ramps, okay, or by using mud brick ramps. Okay? If they were using sand ramps, the sand ramps, if they finished the whole pyramid, they would be so long to probably they cover the valley. Another theory is saying mud brick ramps. Again, mud brick won't be so strong to take the weight of the 15 tons of these stones, and the people or the water buffaloes actually pulling them up all the way. So till now, it's a big secret.
So how big do they reckon each stone is, or how many stones in each?
We have around 2,300,000 pieces of stones, and they weigh roughly between 2.5 tons till 15 tons each.
Pretty big, eh?
Stone, huge blocks, yes.
And there's a whole industry here of camel rides and people who want to stand by you and take your photo for a bakshish and souvenirs. It's hard to get an appreciation of the size of the pyramids and of how much work it must have been to build them. The pyramids are part of the Old Kingdom, and they were built for the pharaoh, for the particular king, once he came onto the throne, as his tomb. And they're built in this shape so it would help him go up to the sun god Ra when he died. Look at the sheer size of the individual rocks that make up the pyramid. Incredible. Originally they were covered with a smooth covering of sandstone on the outside. This one's the Great Pyramid, and you can see that its outer covering is completely gone.
And now we're going to go into Khafre's tomb. You have to climb down quite low. I don't know how long it takes, but we can't take cameras in there, but it should be rather interesting.
And we hope that Khafre actually gets out of Khafre's tomb here. So actually your first go at going into your tomb.
Oh, thanks.
Bye bye.
Oh,
Puffing.
Fantastic.
puffing's lack of oxygen.
Here comes the one that the tomb was made for.
Well, we all hopped in the coffin. Guy after us for money for doing it once you get in there. But the air's so stale that it's hard to breathe. Long way down and then up.
I'll try and give you an idea of the scale of the size of the rock. So each one is this high and along to here. Pretty big.
And these little mini ones, that's where the wives and the, I guess children maybe, I don't know, but certainly the wives and other people like that are built.
Are housed.
Yeah, when they're
Dead. Very impressive. And beside the pyramids they have these boat things made out of cedar wood to help them on their journey up to the sun god Ra. And there's the big city of Cairo. The desert. And the pyramids of Giza.
It's a very, very spectacular place to come to. It does make you, when you think about modern society and how clever we think we are, it does make you wonder at the brains and technology that went behind with the tools they had building these kind of things.
And it also makes you appreciate what Moses and the children of Israel had to go through as they went through the desert, because it's really hot and it's really dry, and there were millions of them, so it must have been an amazing feat for 40 years going through the desert, leaving here from Egypt before they got to the promised land. And here we have the Sphinx. It's got the body of a lion for strength and the head of a man for wisdom. It was just a bit of leftover rock that the king Khafre didn't want to have lying around, so he made it into the Sphinx. Unfortunately, the nose isn't there because Napoleon Bonaparte soldiers were shooting at it, and there are even some rumours that New Zealand soldiers in the war were taking pot shots too. Here's the lion's paw and the tail around there, and the front paws. There were two temples associated with each pyramid, one where the king was mummified and the other where he was, they had the funeral. And look at the size of these granite rocks, right up, and beautifully engineered too, so that they all didn't fall over. This rock has 6 different angles on it, and it's all been put into place perfectly so it fits with the next one. Imagine the weight of it. This is the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, and we've just been through it, and we've seen the Tomb of Tutankhamen, which was 1500 BC. And it's just amazing because there's a great big box, if you like, and then inside that box, and then there's another one inside it, and another one inside it, and then piles and piles and piles of stuff in there, all part of the stuff that was left with him when he died. And then, of course, the very last bit was his mummy. Not his mother, no, his mummy. And we're going to see that when we go down to Luxor. That's the only bit of the tomb that isn't there here in the Egyptian Museum. Quite fantastic to see the way that they remembered the dead king, who then, of course, became a god. You've studied Egyptology for years, haven't you?
Yeah.
Why is it so fascinating for you?
It never stops, you know. You have to keep on digging and keep on knowing and learning.
Now we're at a different pace. We're standing on the banks of the Nile, and we're going to get on the Nile Admiral, which is our beautiful vessel behind us, and have 3 days going down the Nile and visiting places of interest. Now, the Nile Admiral is a rather nice boat. We have a very nice room, and it's very pretty. It has a little swimming pool, and we hope to have a relaxing time.
Luxury and pampering, eh?
Yeah, it is a bit luxurious. It's very nice.
And once again, there's a real industry in this Nile cruising. Some of the opposition boats, and there are cruisers like this just everywhere. But look, this is what it's like, cruising on the Nile. Very nice. And that's our luxury floating hotel. Our cruise starts in Luxor, which is at one of the most important cities, particularly ancient cities, in Egypt. And for a couple of periods in it, it was actually the capital of Egypt. And we're starting here at a temple, and I'll just look at my thing for the name of the temple. It's called the Karnak Temple. And we're going to be seeing a number of temples on our cruise. All the temples have an opening like this as just the way into the temple, and it's always aligned to the west. And that's because the sun god, Ra, rises in the east and sets in the west. So it's always aligned down that line. Then inside the entrance to the temple, there's this great big open area, and it's sort of like a garden for the pharaoh or for the king, who later becomes a god.
One thing that I found interesting was just behind us you'll see the remains of mud bricks and an old earthen wall. That's part of the structure that was used to complete the sandstone wall behind it, and they haven't removed the mud.
Maybe that gives an idea of how they made the things in Giza that we saw.
Oh, I'm sure you're right.
Yeah, because it would give it like a ramp to get up to them, wouldn't it?
At the moment it's incredibly hot too, so just to let you know how we're feeling at the moment.
Thank you for that information. It is sure is hot. I don't know, 30, what, 5, 36?
All the way.
Now, these ram's heads were believed to be made in the times of Ramses II, and in fact the head underneath is Ramses II, also known as Ramses the Great. And why he's important to, or of interest to us, is that they believe he was alive and it was in his palace that Moses grew up, Ramses II.
Oh, and our guide just told us that they actually found the big building where Moses stored all the grain too.
Yeah.
And it still has grain in it.
Yeah,
How about that?
Ramses II.
So maybe these are the actual mud bricks that Moses and the Israelites had to make when they were here in captivity. You never know.
Fascinating.
Behind the open area was the actual temple. And this here is temple of one of the kings, and beautiful sculpture of the king there, Pharaoh. And there is one of his wives. He actually had quite a few wives and fathered 100 kids. Everywhere you find carvings in the monuments using the ancient Egyptian script, and that bit there says about the birth of Ra. See how it's just absolutely everywhere. This temple was built about 1313 before Christ. Completed about 1292 before Christ by Ramses II. What do you think?
It's very
Hot.
Egyptian. Very hot, very, very hot. It's amazing, really. You can see the hieroglyphics up there. They all mean something, and some of the original paint work is still up there. It's fairly well preserved. And did I tell you it was hot?
In this temple there are 158 different columns. They're all well decorated, and they held up a massive roof over the top.
Talking about ancient Egyptian history and Greek era, they used gypsum plaster as sticking material.
And this is one of only 30 obelisks in the whole world that remain.
And here's the second obelisk. And did I mention anything about it being hot?
Well, I thought you were so enjoying the obelisks that you wouldn't even notice that it's hot. And then at the back of the temple is the sanctuary where the remains of the god are kept. This one is King Tutankhamen that we saw the other day, and there's his wife. And if they have their left foot forward, that means that they're a god. Nice place for a final resting place. Then out there is the temple, then the garden, and then the entrance to the whole temple complex.
And did I mention it was hot?
It is hot. He's a hot god. And here's an archaeological dig in process. So they're very carefully taking out the dirt. It's accumulated over the years, putting it over there, and unearthing the historical remains.
thought you might like to know that when I was 10 I went on a school trip to Raglan, and we found some fossils, and at that moment I was going to be an archaeologist. Hey, I've
Changed your mind? Did I mention that it was hot?
It's hot.
That's what archaeologists have to put up with.
I know.
Here's the top of one of those obelisks, and it's absolutely massive and cut out in one piece. Looks like it's marble or granite. Imagine how they lifted it up to get it upright. They reckon that they did it by laying it out on the sand and then digging out sand under it so that it finally rested on its pad. And here's the sacred lake that the priests used to purge themselves before they did their thing. Must have taken quite an event though, digging it all out. This carving shows the unification of the upper and the lower parts of Egypt with its papyrus and lotus. And there's the king that's brought the two parts together. And these are the enemies' cities that have been defeated along the way. Each carving actually tells quite a story. This particular temple is really well preserved, and you can see the entrance down there. Coming through here to the big court. And then way up there is the mausoleum, or the tomb, where the pharaoh would be buried.
Well, we don't know, but
After all the stuff about Ra and his history, we actually think that there might be a more recent history stuff happening up there, possibly even
Christian stuff.
Christian influence.
Yeah, because after a while in history, some of these places were taken over and made into churches. And we're now in the Valley of the Kings, and you can see lots of tombs up there in the rocks. In fact, there are untold kings buried deep in crypts inside these rocks in this valley. Tutankhamun's one is here, and it's got his mummy in there. And right here at the other end of one of the tombs is a temple for one of the queens. Beautifully restored, this one. Unfortunately, they don't let you take cameras into these old tombs. But there was Ramses the First and Ramses the Second and so on. There's a little township that was built for the archaeologists who are digging out all of these tombs. All sorts of stories go on in the past of how they found tombs and fell into holes and found things. Just amazing. All of the tombs are highly decorated, and each little decoration tells a story.
And the colours are mixed with egg white or wax and then put on there, and that's how they've lasted so long.
The eagle's up there so its wings can flap to give new life, give some air in the tomb.
Well, we got up at 4:45 to come to this place, and that's because by mid-morning the temperature is 50 degrees. Right now there's a little bit of a breeze, tiny breeze, which is helping, but it's probably late 30s now already, nearly 10 o'clock.
Did I mention that it was hot?
Yeah, it is hot. Not as hot as yesterday.
Worth coming though to see this ancient civilization, eh?
Absolutely.
Which is around 1,000 to 3,000 years before Christ.
Yeah.
And they're all buried in here. And they used to guard the tomb of one of the kings. And here we have a shepherd looking after his sheep. Notice how they have mixed flocks of sheep and goats. Sheep are different colours. And all day, every day, the shepherd leads and guides his sheep. And then if the sheep get off track, the shepherd goes over and brings them back. Jesus said, "My sheep hear my voice and they follow me." He said, "I know them by name."
And this is our room on the boat. They've come in and they've put the duvets into beautiful patterns, and the towels are in beautiful patterns, and we've come to go on a cruise. Now, we've been here 24 hours and we haven't actually left the dock yet.
It's actually very flash. It's more like a 5-star hotel on water. So we're off at last, and we're going upstream down towards Aswan. Look at all those boats there. There's just hundreds of them waiting on the side of the Nile, ready to take a passenger load. It's actually not necessarily the busiest season right now, so probably because it's not so hot. So this is the life, eh? Nice soup.
Yeah.
Turkey. Lots of choices. Salads galore. Lots of mud brick houses on the sides of the Nile. And there's about 1 kilometre of lovely, fertile, well-watered soil between the Nile and the desert. And just over there, it's incredibly dry. Lots of bulrushes there on the side of the river, so it'll be no problem for making a little basket for Moses. We're now coming up to the lock, and look at this, everybody's trying to sell you stuff. Hello!
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 Excuse me! Hello! Hello! Hi man, how are you? Hello!
I'm very well, thank you. Oh, very nice.
Have a look, lady, have a look!
No, it's very nice. No, thank you.
Wrong colour.
No, thank you. Bye bye.
Hello, excuse me, my darling!
My darling.
Show me this for my dog! Hello!
Look at this one. Gee, they're accurate at their throwing. It's all wet. No, thank you. Bye bye. Don't know that they're doing that much business, because the stuff that they're trying to sell us isn't that good. And over there's the lock, and that's where they adjust the height of the Nile River so that these boats can get through upstream. How about 2 camels for my wife? 2? No, 3. 3 camels.
Tell me price, how much? Tell me price for 2. Bleed, I bleed!
Oh, Gary.
Okay,
Come my friend,
I give you this price.
one day we meet for tea. Here we go.
Whoops.
Okay, I give you table plus, I give you table plus.
Look, see how much for the red dress.
Hello, hello.
us, okay?
We have to wait for the lock. So this is the way to do it. Present for you from New Zealand.
Wrap it up in there.
Hey Ahmed, listen. In New Zealand we have a special bird, it's called a kiwi.
I am ready.
Yeah. A kiwi? Sure. We want to give you a kiwi, alright? Just a gift.
You want us to wrap it in
So
there?
wrap it in there and put it in there.
Rambo! Rambo!
Yeah, you catch.
Kiwi's inside there.
One day when you get a beautiful wife, you can give that to your children.
You give it to your sister, children.
Okay.
There's a kiwi.
Kiwi.
We've just scored 2 beautiful Egyptian towels for 80 Egyptian pounds, 40 a towel a piece, and I'm just about to throw it back down to the trader in this plastic bag.
He's a good friend. Mahmoud.
Mahmoud, money in the bags. I'm very pleased to have met you today.
Thank you.
You enjoy your kiwi.
Good health and life. May you have many children.
What's your boy called? What's your boy called?
Okay.
Not married yet? You hated to find a lovely lady.
I say for my, I think it's, I know Mary.
May you have many goats and sheep and lots of camels,
After.
but only one wife and no more smoking.
You see, have my daughter. Okay. After you come with New Zealand, because you marry for me. Okay?
Count the money. What's for this one?
Change for me, for wife.
She
You
can.
want wife Egyptian, I like your wife.
He's got 4 daughters at home. Well, we've got 4 daughters.
She can cook very well too.
She has 4 girls.
I love your wife. 40, 45. It's very beautiful. I like wife like this.
3 camels then? 3 camels?
Or 2.
2? Oh, you drive a hard bargain.
No, not enough. 3 camels and 2 goats.
And 1 kiwi. Bye-bye.
Very nice meeting
Goodbye,
you, Ahmad.
Ross.
Goodbye.
Nice time.
They never give up. And it's now our time to go through the lock so that we're climbing higher up the river. So we simply sail in here, and then they open these gates here, and that lets the Nile in this side. We rise up, they open those gates over there. We sail on through. See how the water here is at a different level to where we are? You can see the water's coming in and we're rising up
Okay, we're rising. We'll be coming.
quite smoothly too. There we go, the gates are opening so we can head on through. And away we go. And then those 2 boats come in here and go back down to the lower level. Took about an hour to get through the lock system. Life goes on beside the river, having some fisticuffs over there. So what do you reckon about this Nile cruising, eh?
We're having a wonderful time. Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Get used to this sort of thing, yeah. Sure.
Any day, eh?
Any day.
We've stopped in Edfu, and as you can see the tourist trade is alive and well. I think he's trying to cut down the dust there. Good customer service. But boy, they're aggressive when you go anywhere near them. To buy a can of Coke, 40 pounds for you, and you end up buying it for 5. The donkeys are very long suffering. They do a great job. And it's all dependent on the rich tourists. But that one got away from the fella trying to sell the photograph. Over there is the lower Aswan Dam, and it holds back a lake here which goes right up to the upper Aswan Dam. And of course there's a big tourist industry here because they've relocated a complete temple, the Temple of Philae, so that it wasn't going to be flooded under the upper dam. So we're going to go and look at this relocated temple, the Temple of Philae. And they're always trying to sell you something.
Some of them are scented.
Would you like to buy a map, sir?
I'd like to buy a map. I'd love to buy a map, thank you.
Give us a read right around, just want to have a look at them. Okay, well, they're only...
Here some of the necklaces too. White Basura.
There's the dam, and look at all those boats servicing the tourists. And here we have the relocated temple. Once again, we've got the entrance there, and then the big open area. This particular temple was taken over by the Greeks, and then by the Romans, and then by the Christians. So everywhere you can see evidence of crosses. The main temple part was converted into a church in the 500s, and there's the altar. You can see the cross up there.
As I understand, this is a representation of the cow god. You'll see the 2 horns, and the early Christians took away the face, and instead they put their hand, symbolic that Christ had replaced the symbol of the cow god. You'll see that she's suckling the Pharaoh with her breast there, and further up on the wall there we see the same representation but without the face removed.
And this place is actually the tomb of Isis, the god that was placed in here. Unfortunately, there's lots of graffiti being applied to this place. And a lot of the original carvings have been defaced too. Still, they've done a pretty amazing job of restoration in the midst of a very beautiful setting on this island.
And over there, where that little bit of greenery is the very top of what's remaining of the original island of Philae. And in 1973, they moved the whole lot to this place. 47,000 blocks they cut it up into.
Amazing, really.
Yeah.
And that's because of the dam.
Yeah.
The beautiful River Nile. It's just gorgeous.
It's been a surprise. The whole Egypt thing's been a surprise. It was as dirty and as horrible as I had anticipated, I must say. It's been Cairo, but this trip was just the perfect way to finish.
On the Nile, you mean?
Oh, on the trip on the Nile.
Yeah.
The boat is wonderful. The whole environment is a very nice way to finish a holiday. It's just been wonderful.
So what have you learnt about Egypt?
They have lots of temples, and did I tell you it's hot?
Oh, I missed that point. That sounds great.
It's quite hot. I've never really been getting up into the 40s and probably way up there in the 40s before for heat. It was. I have learnt a bit about Egyptian history, and that's been interesting too. But you can only take so much in that amount of heat.
Temples.
Yeah.
In the heat.
In the heat, yeah.
Well, yeah, Egypt's been a marvellous way to end our holiday. Sitting here on a boat in the sun and swimming, and the heat's been a bit hot in the middle of the day, and I think we're all ruined out. But yeah, it's been a great, more relaxing way to end the holiday. So yeah, not quite as on the go as we had been.
And what did you learn about Egypt?
It's dirty and hot. Well, Cairo's dirty and hot. Where we are at the moment, this city seems to be really rather clean and tidy, quite different to Cairo.
And isn't the Nile lovely?
The Nile is beautiful.
Egypt, I think the thing that has struck me most is that as we've gone down the Nile in the boat, we've looked out across, seen the mud huts, seen the sailboats, seen kids playing in the river, and really I think it's just as it was some 2,000 years ago, and I've been struck by that. Egypt is as you see it. There's no pretending. You just take the good and the bad. Lots of bad, but also lots of good. We've known incredible kindness, hospitality. We've seen lots of rudeness and people on the take. So we've seen the good, the bad and the ugly. But I just love it here because there's no pretending. You get what you get. It's been quite a life-changing experience.
Yes, when we decided to finish our trip in Egypt, we were a little wee bit nervous because we've heard about the heat, and we've heard about the dirt, and we've heard about people getting the bot, but it hasn't been like that at all. Yes, there's been heat, yes, there's been dirt, but overall it's been absolutely wonderful. Together with Israel and with Jordan, what it's done for me is reinforced again how the Bible is accurate, and it's part of a natural history that has taken place here. And we have seen places and we've experienced things which the Bible talks about, and that's been absolutely great for me. I've really loved going on the Nile though. It's just been so beautiful, so peaceful, so real, yeah, that's the word, so genuine. And so I'm really, really glad that we came here to Egypt. Once again, it's been a privilege to visit Israel, it's been a privilege to visit Jordan, and it's also been a privilege to visit here in Egypt.